Have you ever seen what happens when pure, unpolished brilliance dares to enter a world paved in gold? When Sarah Jackson's fingers brushed the keys of that piano, they laughed. They thought they were witnessing a joke. What they didn't know was that she was the storm. 15-year-old Sarah didn't come from concert halls or conservatories. She came from cracked sidewalks, late rent, and music played through thin apartment walls. And yet, she'd taught herself what others paid thousands to learn. Note by note, mistake by mistake. Her classroom was a community center, her audience, silence. Until today. Sarah. Mr. Johnson's voice cut through her concentration, soft but full of something like awe. She turned, startled, eyes wide and dark. That was beautiful, he said. She blushed, brushing a braid behind her ear. Just trying something new, she mumbled. He smiled, walking toward her with an envelope in hand. Then it worked. I have something for you. He handed her the envelope carefully, like it was glass. She read the words printed in gold. Westfield Music Academy, Showcase and Open House. Her breath caught. But that's for real musicians, she whispered. He leaned closer. Exactly. She peeled the envelope open like it might vanish. How did they even... I sent them a recording, Mr. Johnson admitted. A friend of mine teaches there. He couldn't believe what he heard. Sarah blinked. Westfield? That's where the prodigies go. The ones who've had private tutors since they were 6. You deserve to be there, he said. Behind her, in the doorway, stood her mother. Worn scrubs, fatigue in her shoulders, pride in her eyes. My baby is exceptional, she said softly. She really is, Mr. Johnson replied, nodding. Sarah's hands trembled slightly, holding the invitation like it might dissolve. We can't afford... It's just a showcase, he interrupted gently. They offer full scholarships. That night, their tiny kitchen smelled of pot roast. A rare celebration. A rare maybe. Westfield. Her little brother Marcus stabbed a carrot. Is that the place with 7 pianos? 7 grand pianos, Sarah corrected. Her mom served dinner slowly, watching her. Sounds expensive. Mr. Johnson said there are scholarships, Sarah offered. Her mother hesitated. For people like us? Sarah set down her fork. For good musicians. Her mother reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Then you've got nothing to worry about. But Marcus wasn't done. You mean for rich white kids? Marcus, their mother warned. It's fine, Sarah said. He's right. The truth landed heavy between them. She remembered falling in love with the piano at age 7 when the community center got a donation from the church. While the other kids played basketball, she played chords. No lessons, no metronome. Just borrowed time and borrowed keys. Mr. Johnson had seen her, taken notice, taught her during his lunch breaks. By 14, she could play Beethoven by ear, her style raw but breathtaking. I don't want you hurt, Sarah, her mom said quietly. That place? They don't always make room for girls who don't fit the mold. Sarah looked toward the invitation on her nightstand. But what if I do fit? If music is all they really care about? Her mom nodded slowly. Then you go show them who you are. But don't lose yourself trying to be seen. That night, as her siblings slept, Sarah slipped on her headphones and sat at her keyboard. The cracked plastic keys had never felt like ivory, but to her, they might as well have been. Her fingers glided through Chopin's Ballad No. 1 in G minor. Tomorrow, she'd walk into a world where doors didn't open easily. But tonight, she was exactly who she'd always been. Someone who could make worn-out keys sound like a symphony, and that would have to be enough. No mistake, her mother said, voice quiet, but firm as marble. You belong anywhere your music leads you. A soft chime echoed across the marble hall. 10 minutes to showtime. The guests began drifting toward the concert hall, voices blending into a hum of silk and money. Sarah and her mother took seats near the back. The concert venue looked like it belonged to a royal palace. Arched ceilings, gold trim, and a stage that seemed carved from reverence. Her eyes wandered, and then locked. Platinum blonde, back straight, confidence radiating from every inch. She entered like she owned the air. Daisy Wellington. 3 other students trailed behind her, orbiting like moons. That's Harold Wellington's daughter, someone whispered. They say Juilliard's already reaching out. Sarah's stomach clenched. Awe, envy, something else she couldn't name. The program in her lap confirmed it. Daisy Wellington, showcase finale, Liszt's La Campanella. The lights dimmed. A spotlight formed on stage. Westfield's director stepped up. Mrs. Hamilton. a poised woman with silver hair twisted into a flawless chignon. "Welcome to Westfield," she said, her voice crisp as glass. She spoke of excellence, legacy, and artistry, of doors open to those who matched the Academy's standard. The first performer entered. Sarah leaned forward, eager to listen, but something caught her eye, a glimpse through a cracked side door. Backstage, Daisy stood alone, stretching her fingers, her dress shimmering under a warm spotlight. Every detail, from her pinned hair to her perfect manicure, was precision. A staff member adjusted the piano bench. "Higher!" Daisy snapped. "Did you forget my settings from last time?" The man, older, maybe mid-50s, nodded, calm. "Yes, Miss Wellington." She tested it with a frown. "It'll do, I suppose." Sarah couldn't look away. Daisy was terrifyingly composed, born into rooms like this. She didn't play for permission. She played because she expected applause. "You're watching the Queen herself," a voice said beside Sarah. She turned. A boy, her age, wiry frame, glasses slightly too big. His blazer didn't fit right. "Noah," he said, offering a tentative smile. "Scholarship, first year." "Sarah," she said quietly. "Not a student. Yet." Noah nodded toward Daisy. "She's been trained by everyone. Her dad basically paid for this wing. And the recording studio." Sarah's gaze drifted back. Daisy didn't flinch as Mrs. Hamilton approached, laying a hand gently on her shoulder. "You'll be magnificent as always, my dear," she said. "Your father sends his regrets. Meetings in Tokyo." For a split second, Daisy's mask slipped. Then, flawless smile. "He sent flowers." Mrs. Hamilton disappeared into the wings. Daisy turned and saw Sarah. For a moment, blue eyes locked on brown. A single flick of a gaze, assessing, judging. "You're in the wrong space," Daisy said coolly. "This area's for performers and staff." Sarah's mouth opened. Heat flared in her cheeks. "She's with me," Noah said quickly, stepping forward. "Mrs. Hamilton asked me to give a tour. Prospective student." Daisy's eyebrow lifted. "Prospective," she repeated. Her tone sliced. Her eyes took in Sarah's second-hand shoes, her simple dress. "How inclusive," she said. Sarah's throat tightened. Her mother's words echoed. "Protect your heart." Mrs. Hamilton's voice rang out again. "Places, everyone. We begin in 5. She passed them, smiling warmly. "Miss Jackson, glad you're getting the full experience. Noah's one of our scholarship stars." Then she gestured toward the audience. "You'll want to rejoin your mother before we begin." Sarah walked off, Daisy's words still clinging to her skin. As she sat back down, her mother looked at her with concern. Sarah only shook her head. No time for tears. The lights faded. A hush fell. The first pianist walked on stage. Fingers flew. Notes landed. Applause rose. But Sarah leaned to her mother and whispered, "They're playing poems they don't understand." Her mother squeezed her hand. "That's because they've never had to earn it." Piece after piece flowed. Technical perfection. Pristine execution. But something was missing. Something only Sarah could feel. Emotion. The second half began. Mrs. Hamilton stepped forward. "And now, our finale. Miss Daisy Wellington, La Campanella." Thunderous applause. Daisy floated to the piano like she'd been born on that stage. Every note she played was flawless. Every run, effortless. A storm of sound with no soul. Olympic precision. No warmth. Sarah watched in silence. The audience leapt to their feet. Her mother whispered, "She's very impressive." "Yes," Sarah said. "But I didn't feel anything." As the applause died, Sarah's eyes returned to the piano. Not the girl. The keys. And for the first time, she imagined not asking for permission. Just playing. Sarah stood near the column with her mother, watching the flow of polished guests as if peering through a glass wall. Around them, conversations sparkled like champagne. But Sarah couldn't stop glancing back at the Steinway on stage, its black frame glowing faintly under the soft lights. Her fingers twitched. "I'll be right back," she whispered, already drifting toward it. "Sarah!" her mother began, but the pull was too strong. She moved like a moth to a flame, weaving between pearls and pinstripes. The piano stood waiting, still open from Daisy's performance, its lid raised like a wing caught mid-flight. Sarah stepped up to it slowly. She didn't press a key, just rested her fingers gently on the ivory, letting herself feel it. It was cold, smooth, sacred. Then came the voice, sharp, clipped, unmistakably mocking. "What do you think you're doing?" Sarah jerked her hand back. Daisy stood a few feet away, flanked by 2 boys and a girl who looked just like her, entitled and entertained. "I wasn't playing," Sarah said softly. "Just looking." "That's a $150,000 Steinway," Daisy said, stepping closer. Her voice carried. "It's not here for visitors to paw like it's some thrift store keyboard." Heat flared up Sarah's neck. Heads were turning. Whispers built around her. "I play," Sarah said, her voice firmer this time. Daisy tilted her head. "Oh, really? What, chopsticks? Heart and soul?" "I'm working on Chopin. Ballad No. 1 in G minor." The laughter from Daisy's group was sharp enough to cut glass. "On what? A toy keyboard from Walmart?" Sarah's heart thudded. The crowd was forming, circling like sharks. "Don't touch what you can't afford," Daisy said, loud and clear. "This isn't some beat-up church piano." The words stung, not because of the piano, because of what they meant. Sarah wasn't just being mocked. She was being told she didn't belong. Mrs. Hamilton appeared from the crowd, her expression unreadable. "Is there an issue here?" Daisy smiled sweetly. "Just protecting the school's property. She's not a performer." Sarah burned with shame. But before she could respond, someone stepped into the circle. Mr. Johnson, her music teacher. "I'd love to hear what Sarah Jackson thinks of this piano," he said evenly. The crowd parted. He walked straight to Sarah, setting a hand on her shoulder. "This young woman is more than qualified to stand here." Daisy folded her arms. "If she's so great, why not let her play?" Mrs. Jackson stepped forward. "We didn't come here to be tested." But Sarah looked at Mr. Johnson. His quiet nod steadied her. "I'd like to," she said. Her mother touched her arm. "Are you sure?" Sarah nodded. "I didn't come here just to be seen. I came to play." Mrs. Hamilton hesitated, then gestured grandly to the piano. "The stage is yours, Miss Jackson." Gasps fluttered through the crowd. Daisy's group leaned in, already smirking. "Ambitious," Daisy muttered. "That piece is conservatory level." Sarah didn't answer. She adjusted the bench, sat down, and placed her fingers on the keys. She closed her eyes and left the room behind. She went back to where it began, the scratched upright at the community center, her mother humming in the kitchen, the cold plastic keys of her hand-me-down keyboard. She remembered playing through the noise, through tiredness, through doubt. Then she opened her eyes and played. The first notes of Chopin's Ballad No. 1 rose into the hush like a question. The piano answered. They expected a flinch, a stumble, a beginner's mistake that would confirm their assumptions. But what followed shattered them. As Sarah moved into the heart of Chopin's ballade, something shifted, not just in her body, but in the room. Her back straightened, shoulders eased, and her expression melted into quiet absorption. It was no longer a teenager at a piano. It was a soul telling its story. Her fingers swept over the keys with ease and urgency, the kind of fluency born not from rigid lessons, but from lived hunger. She didn't play the music like a student solving an equation. She translated it like someone who had lived it. Each dynamic swell, each cascading run, each hush of silence between notes, all of it pulsed with meaning. Mrs. Hamilton, composed and cool just moments before, now leaned in from the front row. Her professional mask faltered, curiosity piercing through. Around her, conversations died mid-sentence. Even servers in white gloves froze at the edge of the foyer. For a moment, Westfield forgot it was an institution, and remembered it was a place of music. Sarah's technique wasn't flawless. Her pedaling was occasionally imprecise. A rapid passage fluttered slightly, but none of it mattered, because where the others had performed, she confessed. Mr. Johnson stood beside Mrs. Jackson, his eyes shimmering with unspoken pride, and Mrs. Jackson, hand pressed to her mouth, watched her daughter shed years of doubt with every note. At the front, Daisy's arms remained crossed, but the confidence had drained from her face. Her smirk had vanished, replaced with something harder to name, something dangerously close to respect. One of her friends leaned in to whisper, but she silenced them with a sharp shake of her head, her eyes glued to the keys. Sarah reached the final hurdle, the whirlwind coda, the same section she'd tripped over 100 times at home. But here, with this instrument, in this moment, her hands found something new. Power, freedom, grace. The notes flew. Her fingers moved faster than she thought they could, and yet never lost control. The piano sang beneath her, not like a tool, but like a partner, amplifying every emotion without effort. Mrs. Hamilton scribbled furiously on a notepad. Beside her, a faculty member leaned in, eyebrows raised. They weren't whispering judgment anymore. They were calculating possibilities. The final chords arrived. Sarah slowed. softened. She let the harmonies fade into the air like an exhale held too long. When the last sound died, silence flooded the room. 1 second, 2, 3, then a single clap. Mr. Johnson, followed by a second, then dozens, then everyone. The applause swelled, not polite, not performative, but real. Risen from stunned stillness to roaring admiration, Sarah sat frozen, overwhelmed by the response. Her heart raced, her hands still tingling. She stood slowly. Mrs. Hamilton approached. Her voice trembled slightly as she said, "Miss Jackson, that was extraordinary." Before Sarah could respond, Daisy stepped forward. "She's clearly been practicing that one piece forever. A one-trick pony." Mrs. Hamilton didn't blink. "Miss Wellington, I was speaking to Miss Jackson." Sarah straightened. "I've been playing since I was 7, she said evenly. "No formal lessons." A ripple moved through the crowd. "She learned that on her own," Mr. Johnson added. "She plays by ear, mostly teaches herself." Dr. Reed, the head of piano studies, stepped forward. "You have perfect pitch," he said. "Don't you?" "I don't know," Sarah said. "I just hear it." He studied her, then smiled. "Play something else. Anything, even something new. Can you?" Sarah nodded slowly. "Do you know Bach?" "I've been working on Prelude in C." Dr. Reed leaned forward, eyes alight. "How about something you haven't played? Something you've only heard?" Sarah hesitated, but nodded again. Daisy scoffed loudly. "Miss Wellington," Mrs. Hamilton said sharply, "perhaps extend to Miss Jackson the courtesy you demand for yourself." Sarah stood still. Daisy's words hung in the corridor like smoke. Caustic, dismissive, but not unexpected. "No," Sarah said quietly. "I probably don't know what it takes yet, but I know what it costs to love something in silence." Daisy blinked, thrown off by the calm response. Sarah continued, her voice firmer. "I didn't have private tutors, or Steinways in my living room, but I practiced anyway. When the power got cut, I practiced in the dark. When I didn't have sheet music, I listened and rewound and listened again. I may not speak your language of recitals and resumes, but I know how to speak music." Daisy's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Sarah took a small step forward, not confrontational, but unshaken. "I didn't ask for favors. I didn't ask for applause. I asked for a chance, and I earned it." Their eyes locked. For a moment, the hallway felt like a stage with only 2 characters, the girl who had everything, and the girl who had nothing but sound. Then, just as quickly, Daisy looked away. "Let's see if you're still here by midterms," she muttered, brushing past. Sarah didn't turn to watch her go. She simply stood there, heart racing, not from the conflict, but from the clarity. She wasn't here to prove Daisy wrong. She was here to prove herself right. Later that evening, back at their apartment, Mrs. Jackson stood at the stove stirring a pot of red beans and rice while Sarah sat at the small kitchen table, the acceptance letter in her hand. "You okay?" her mother asked without turning around. Sarah nodded slowly. "Yeah, just taking it in." Her mother turned, wiping her hands on a towel. "You know, when you were 7, I watched you press your fingers on that busted old piano like it was sacred. That's when I knew." "Knew what?" "That this wouldn't be just a hobby. That this thing, music, was going to demand everything from you. And if you gave it your all, it might just give something back." Sarah smiled faintly, her eyes stinging. "It's starting to." Mrs. Jackson came over, resting her hands on Sarah's shoulders. "Then don't let anyone, no matter how shiny their shoes are, tell you you're not meant to be there. You don't have to shrink to fit this place. Let it expand to fit you." Sarah leaned into the touch, the warmth of it anchoring her in the swirl of change. Outside, the city hummed in late evening rhythm. Sirens in the distance, a dog barking. Somewhere a child laughed, and inside their apartment, small, worn, but full of dreams, a girl with calloused fingers was preparing to meet destiny on her own terms. The next morning, Sarah stood at the gates of Westfield alone, her backpack over one shoulder and a folder of orientation materials in hand. A different kind of silence surrounded her now. Not the hush of being overlooked, but the quiet before a beginning. As she stepped through the doors of her new school, she didn't pretend not to feel the weight of expectation, of scrutiny, of history. But she also carried something Daisy didn't see, something no one could take away. The sound of her own voice, expressed through keys, and with every note she played from this moment on, Sarah would make sure the world listened. The hall was silent, not from tension this time, but from awe. As the final chord faded and Sarah lifted her hands from the keys, she looked sideways at Daisy. For once, there was no competition in her expression. Only breathlessness. Only respect. The applause began slowly, then swelled. Not just polite clapping, but real, sustained recognition. The kind of ovation that meant something had shifted. Mrs. Hamilton stood at the edge of the stage, a rare smile reaching her eyes. Behind her, faculty members exchanged glances, the kind that signaled new plans already forming. Dr. Reed wiped his glasses with a handkerchief, blinking back something close to emotion. In the third row, Sarah's mother pressed a hand over her heart, eyes filled with quiet wonder. Mr. Johnson clapped with an intensity that made nearby parents glance over. Even Sarah's little brother, in a slightly oversized blazer, sat up straighter than he ever had. The music had done something words never could. Backstage, the moment they stepped off stage, Daisy let out a long breath and leaned briefly against the wall. "That," she said, "was better than I expected." Sarah gave a small smile. "Same." Daisy looked over, her voice softer than it had ever been. "You're not here because of sympathy, Sarah. You're here because you're good." Sarah nodded. "Thanks. And you're not just technique. You've got a voice in there too. You just hide it well." For a heartbeat, Daisy almost smiled again. Maybe I just needed the right duet partner. They didn't hug. They didn't pose for pictures. But the space between them wasn't hostile anymore. It had become something else. Acknowledgement. A shared understanding that their rivalry had shaped them both. The following week, Sarah sat once again at her upright keyboard at home, this time to play just for herself. No stage. No spotlight. Her fingers moved more confidently now, but the core of her was unchanged. The girl who played because she had something to say when words weren't enough. A notification buzzed on her phone. It was an email. From Mr. Abernathy. Subject: Young Classical Artists Foundation. Offer letter enclosed. Sarah opened it slowly. A national summer program. Fully funded. Masterclasses with touring artists. Performances in New York, Chicago, and D.C. Her breath caught. The possibilities ahead were unlike anything she'd imagined. In the living room, her mother folded laundry and watched her. "Good news?" Sarah nodded, blinking quickly. "Yeah, the best." Mrs. Jackson smiled but said nothing. She just reached out and took Sarah's hand, steady, calloused from hours of practice, and now holding a future she'd carved herself. Later that month, the school held a small ceremony for students who'd received major recognitions. Sarah stood in front of a simple plaque being added to the wall. Emerging Artists, Class of Westfield. Her name had been added. As she stared at the polished surface, her reflection looked back at her. Not the girl who'd once felt invisible in a room full of polished shoes, but someone who had earned her place. Behind her, footsteps approached. "I heard you're heading to Carnegie Hall," Daisy said lightly. "Summer program, a few showcases. Nothing official." "Still," Daisy said, then hesitated. "You'll crush it." Sarah looked at her former rival. "Thanks." Daisy looked away, then back again. "Maybe next year, we'll play something again. Not because they ask us to, just because we choose to." Sarah smiled. "Maybe we will." In a school built for prestige, Sarah had brought something money couldn't buy. And from that day forward, no one ever questioned again whether she belonged. She had proved it. With her heart, her hands, and her music. Her